Welcome everyone. This is Sangeeta Bhatnagar, welcoming you to in this Together series of webinars. And today we are just thrilled to have two amazing industry leaders. So before we get started, just some housekeeping. You can ask questions with in the area of where the little hand is. You can put your hand up, ask a question. You can send questions in. You can use chat. And we are here to answer your questions. So get that. We want you to participate. Our speakers, our moderator, Jeff Doran, he's going to make sure your questions all get answered. So please participate. We want this to be very interactive. So with everything happening, first, with all of us being rushed home, so many things happened, and a ton of agents are at home now, but maybe not necessarily planned for it. And a big question is, how do we keep our remote agents engaged? So we are very fortunate, extremely fortunate to have two leaders that have experience with this prior to COVID and then full force with COVID. So it's not just response mode. A lot of it was strategically planned. So you were going to hear a lot of valuable nuggets of information and great insights. So if we can help me welcome Sharon Stines. A lot of you who are GTACers right here in Toronto, you probably know her. She's the AVP Customer Care from Air Miles. True servant leader. Beautiful heart, amazing leader, cares about teams, employee engagement, creating valuable customer experiences, member experiences, over 30 years in the industry, with a progressive career based on, always being a person of value. I've known her for years, have tremendous respect for her. And then through these planning calls, my respect has even skyrocketed even more. I'm just so thrilled that you're on this call, Sharon. I cannot say it enough.
Thank you.
Bradshaw. Many of you know him from Tangerine, formerly ING. And he's a frequent speaker at many, many conferences. And I know even my counterpart in the East Coast said, "Oh, tell David I said hello." He's so respected. And I know we have a lot of Tangerine folks on the line as well. He is now a VP at ATB Financial, and will also share many stories of leading remote as well as on-site teams, and how to keep our teams that are right now all remote super engaged. And we'll hear some valuable nuggets. And today's session will be moderated by founder of Contact Center Employer of Choice, that's CCEOC, Jeff Doran. He is actually a GTAC influencer as well, serving the GTAC community for many years. So he'll be your moderator. And all of this is very possible, and he never takes enough credit. We have Mike Aoki, who runs a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, because I am a spaz. So when I run it, there's some issues. So I count on Mike, and he does such an amazing job, and is just a humble servant. And he doesn't take any credit for it, but I have to say it's a teamwork. And thank you, Mike. Thank you so much. So that's Mike Aoki from Reflective Keynote. So you probably know him too. He's usually our MC many, many years, I think at least 6 years at our big conference. Another GTAC influencer, and just a humble servant and a dear friend of mine. So let's get this going here. Mike, okay, and why are we doing these sessions? When this all started in March, there was a lot of stress going on. I was hearing from the leaders. So the intention behind this is only to share best practices, share ideas, answer your questions, support each other, because a lot of times leaders have that doubt. Am I doing it the right way? Am I doing the right thing? And at least you can hear from other people who are actually rolling up their sleeves and doing the work. And you can share ideas back and forth. And the purpose behind GTAC is always to connect, learn, and grow together. So through all of this, we are in this together. Through all the things that are happening in the world today, we are all together. All right, so with that, I would love to turn it over to Jeff Doran, and floor is yours, Jeff.
Okay, thank you very much, Sangeeta and Mike, for getting this put together. I think it's very timely. And also thank you to our great guests here today. So let's just jump right into it. And I think this is a great first question. It would be good to understand, get a better understanding of your current structure prior to the pandemic, and then that can kind of lead into some other topic as to how you see it moving forward. But let's direct this first question to you, Sharon. So how would you best describe your structure prior to the pandemic?
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be chatting with you all. So we actually started our work at home journey at Air Miles in 2008. We started with one team. And, you know, as fortune would have it, at the Q4 of 2019, we made the decision that all of our frontline folks would be 100% working from home. So by the end of Q4 2019, all of our frontline teams were 100% working from home. But we had what I call a hybrid work at home environment. So even though the frontline associates worked at home, they came in office for training, team meetings, large engagement type events, and the supporting teams around them. So the managers, the leaders, workforce planning, those groups, RTO, were part at home and part in office. So we'd have like 3 days at home and 2 days in office. We always had an in-office presence because we always had a portion of the team in office at some point. And but COVID, the pandemic changed all of that. So in the middle of March, we all went home, and we're now 100% at home. But prior to that, we were a hybrid work at home environment.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you were pretty much, in some regards, prepared for this from a structural perspective. There's a lot of other things going on. But,
sorry, Jeff, I'm having a hard time hearing you. Sorry.
I'll hold the mic up. Is that better?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
So were you experiencing any kind of stressors that you didn't experience prior to getting the hybrid set up? As a result of the
I missed the last half. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sound. Hold on a second.
Is it just me?
No, it's hard to hear.
Cutting in and out, yeah.
Okay, let me try that. Is that a bit better?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. So I just wanted to know, were you experiencing any other stressors as a result of the pandemic hitting, because you've already set up this hybrid?
Yeah, so definitely when we moved home 100%, we had to make some significant changes in terms of the training, for example. We used to bring people in office for training. So any training that we do now is 100% web-based training or virtual-led training. So no one can come into the office. So the things that we used to bring people in office for, we made changes to. So any of our engagement activities, we went to a 100% virtual type of engagement plan instead of bringing people into the office. Anything that, for example, if someone was having technical difficulty, we'd probably give them a couple of hours to try to resolve that, and then we'd have them come into the office to work. We can no longer do that. And so what we had to do is try and help people fix the technology. We still pay them, and if they can't fix it by a certain period of time, we still pay them for that amount, but we put them on a priority list to try and get them fixed. What we try to do now is what we're trying to do proactively is make sure that the things that break often, that everybody has 2 of those. So if one breaks, you already have one at home that you can just, if your headset breaks, you have a second one, and then we can get the other one out to you. But we had to work on a process where we could get resources to folks. And we had to do a lot of this. Our service desk had to change too, because instead of having someone come into the home, we do a lot of telling them your equipment just arrived. Now we're going to kind of walk you through how to set it up because it isn't working properly. So some of those things we had to adjust in the moment. Long term, as the longer we've been at home, we've just been evolving things to say we no longer can do this. So we have to make sure that everything that we used to bring people in for is now something that we do virtually. So we've introduced new channels, and I'll talk a little bit about more of that later, but we definitely had to make adjustments. And what we thought was going to be for a couple of weeks, but when it ended up being longer, we certainly adjusted ourselves to say, hey, training team, we need you to convert all of this training material to web-based material.
Right, yeah. And what I'm hearing there is the word redundancy. And if you're familiar with that kind of word, we call it an industry.
Jeff, we're actually having a hard time hearing you.
You're still having a hard time. Okay.
If we can let our speakers continue, and then maybe you just call in. If that'd be okay?
Okay.
Okay, so we'll let Sharon and David continue. And call in. That's awesome. Thank you.
Okay. All good. Yeah, so I think I'm next up with another question in terms of the actual things that we've done to keep people engaged while they're at home. That's my next up, I think, that I was going to comment on. Yeah, and you know what? When I get asked that question, the number one thing that comes to me, it's basically the same thing. So what you do to keep people engaged when they're in the office are the same things you need to do when they're outside of the office, except you kind of dial it up a notch, right? So communication is critical. And one thing that I think is a little bit different here, communication is key. It always is. But when you're in the office together, one of the things you always say when you have to have a difficult conversation is that you need to have it face-to-face, and you need to put the technology down and just engage with the associate. You can't put the technology down when you're home. The only way to engage with someone is through the technology. So technology becomes even more critical, more important, because without the technology, you can't. You need the web cameras. So we've got all of our associates using their web cameras because we need to see you. We need to have those conversations, and the face-to-face can only happen through the technology. The other thing that's really, really important to me is that transparency. That transparency that you have when you're face-to-face, you have to dial it up a notch when you're not face-to-face. You need to really be able to share with people your own struggles of going home and how you're feeling, and all of the things that you've been through. What has been your challenges? What have been your strengths? You need to have those open conversations, and you need to have technology help you to do that. And so some of the things that are really important that you do is that you need to make time. A light bulb went off for us when we were 100% virtual, especially because in the beginning for us, we had a lot of, we had an increased call volume because we had a lot of collectors who were traveling that we needed to get home or who needed to cancel their travel plans. And so there was a lot of communication coming from airline partners, and we needed to get a lot of communication out to our front line. But what we hadn't done is we hadn't given them any additional time to absorb the communication. So all of the normal communication that was coming at them through their emails. But we were also doing our engagement virtually. We were also just connecting and saying hello and recognizing people virtually. And so we recognized we had to give them more time. So what we did was we have a briefing time built into their schedules, 10 minutes when they start their shift. We added an additional 10 minutes in the afternoon, so 20 minutes per day to kind of get through all of the information and give them time to read and absorb. So that was something that was really, really critical and important for them. The other piece that we did was that we made sure that we enhanced our recognition, and it was more out there. So what we did was we went out and we had some we did virtual thank you cards because, as I said, we got really, really busy very, very fast. So we went out, we did virtual thank you cards. We got everyone across the organization to write comments and thank you for the frontline team. I now do my pulse sessions like I used to do face-to-face. I do them virtually, and everybody has their web cameras on. We are introducing an infographic to share our monthly results with people so that they can actually see the results each month. We have a new tool that enables people to ask questions in the day. So if you have a question from a frontline perspective, they can just submit it to a senior leader, and we review those questions and respond back to them in the moment. Our fun calendar, I mentioned that before, is 100% now virtual. And so we do all activities with the team virtually. With the 10 minutes of time the 20 minutes of time that we have per day, my commitment to the team was the 20 minutes is the base. As things get more complex, or if we have bigger activities, you'll get more time, not less time. So it's important not to connect, not to pull back on the time. You really need to give them the time, and you need to really give opportunities for the recognition. So more time to listen, respond, and react. So more opportunities. We have a culture ambassador team that is the face of our frontline folks. They have an email address. They have opportunity to speak at weekly huddles or in team meetings to connect with folks. We need to give people time to ask questions and to give feedback and to share. We provided mental health training to all of our leaders. And this training was not just about how to recognize and support others, but also about how to take care of your own mental health. We offered more work-life balance. I don't know if any of you feel the same, but working from home feels like you're always working. And so for our frontline, we recognize that for our frontline folks, it was 100% normal for them to work from home, but it wasn't normal to have their children there. And so what we did was offered up some additional options for them so they could split their shifts differently if they needed to. We offered SLOOP, scheduled leave without pay options, so that they could shorten their work weeks, work 4 days, and have 1 day unpaid if they needed to. And if any of the options that we had pre-established didn't meet the needs, they have the opportunity to reach out to their leader, and if they have a unique situation, we can make adjustments to their schedules. For the corporate folks who were 100% working from home for the first time, we gave a subsidy. So we said to them, hey, we know you may need to go out and get new equipment. And if you need to do that to make your home offices comfortable, we did a $300 subsidy one time for those folks as well. So really about making sure that everything that you did when you were face-to-face with someone, you still need to do, but you need to make sure that you have the technology that helps you do that. So the Jabber rooms, the Slack rooms, to enable people to connect. The WebEx is 100% what you need. I used to hate it. I still don't love it. But you know what? It's the only way for me to see my team, and that is more important to me. I totally don't even notice what I look like anymore, because that's not what's important. What's important is that connection.
That's awesome, Sharon.
Can you hear me now, Sangeeta?
Yes.
Yes, you can. And
Okay.
it has lots of great stuff to add here.
That's wonderful. Now, so I think David would like to get some input from you.
Yeah, sure. We do very similar things to what Sharon does. And first of all, Sharon, you must have been 2 years old when you started working, and I think that's in.
Yeah, of course. 1 year old, not 2.
So the things that we were 70% hybrid, and then we went to 100%. Just to give you guys a little bit of context, the things that some of the stresses that we saw was we saw average handle time rise because people didn't have the same type of equipment that they had at home with the 2 screens. Simple things like not having a mouse and versus using the scroll mouse. So we saw some things where our productivity actually took a bit of a hit, but we were able to get that back down through coaching. Those would be some of the stresses of moving from working inside the office to working 100% remotely. The one thing that we did see that didn't hit us as hard as other financial institutions is that our wait time didn't go through the roof. It definitely increased by about 30 to 40%. But that was from going from, an average wait time of, say, 60 seconds to, double it and triple it. So it wasn't so much of a major impact for us, but we did see our volume increase. And that was the result of the average handle time going up because it just took longer to churn through the calls. So just to be mindful of watching those particular, paying attention to those particular numbers. From an engagement perspective, very similar things with that Sharon does. The one thing that we are trying to incorporate, that we're working really hard to incorporate, is how you can just drop by someone's desk or pop into their office, that unscheduled water cooler talk, or I just want to talk to you for 2 seconds. That time actually has to get scheduled because you just can't just pop in to someone's virtual world. So what we're finding is that people's calendars are actually getting quite extended with trying to put in this check-in time just to make sure. And this is the the unscheduled check-in time where you can just walk by, that kind of drop by thing that you typically do with people. So that's one of the things that we're working really hard on. And then the other thing that we do is we like to have some fun. So I used to DJ, and I still have all the equipment. I still have all the vinyl. So once a month, I put on like a live stream session where I'm just DJing and playing music for people for like 2 hours. So what they're able to do is they can come in whenever they want to on their break. And the other thing that we did is we record the session so people can actually go back and just listen to the music while they're at their desk. So I just wanted to have some fun time with the with our team members. So that's one of the other things that we do. And then the other thing that I make sure that I'm present. Like I make sure that I'm constantly present. So just simple things like responding to email right away, to show that you're listening to people. So where you have the physical handshake with someone or the physical hello to someone, you have to take those attendance skills or those listening skills and make sure that you do it electronically. So emails to me, they maximum 24 hours. Like I don't wait 1 or 2 days to respond to people. And I continue, I make sure that when I'm doing things, I take action very quickly so that people can see that you're there, you're listening, you're engaged. And I make sure that all the leaders are doing that as well, that we don't make people wait in a vacuum and that we respond to people fairly quickly. So we're trying to take the stuff that you do face to face and make sure that you incorporate that in the remote world.
That's awesome.
I think I can jump in there too. 1 second. Just one of the things that we do as well is we do a weekly coffee time with SLT, and it's scheduled in people's calendars, but they can join if they'd like. If they want to have conversation, we tell them to bring their virtual coffee with them. But it's an opportunity just to ask questions. But we end up sometimes people will share their dogs, their kids drop by, and they just have conversation. We do a Friday fun time of 30 minutes minimum where we play Kahoot and games together. So we do some of that. You're right. You have to schedule those things that used to happen in the moment, and you have to make time to connect and say, you can drop by, like dropping by my office is now I create a virtual window of time to say, this is a time that you can drop by into this virtual chat room and just chat with friends and folks. And we have virtual lunches as well. So what we'll do is people will grab their lunch and then we'll just have lunch together and chat.
That's awesome. I'm hearing a lot of focus, certainly in this part of the conversation, about the social aspect of keeping that part of the contact center alive, keeping it fluid. So obviously that's a very important part about getting team cohesion. And do you see it as a positive moving forward that you're developing these new ways to connect with employees, and this is something that is important down the road? Or is this something that's purely kind of as a result of the pandemic and the current situation, and that those things will kind of fade back as we move into some kind of normal down the road?
Yeah, I don't see this. I don't see this as part of the pandemic. I see this as part of working remote. So when you have team members that are working from home, these are some of the things that you just have to do. So I don't see us changing anything. I actually see us talking this up a bit and making sure that we're very, very deliberate in what we do. So, the other things that we also have is we have my executive vice president who has his weekly meetings with all of the retail financial services group every Friday. We have our CEO that every Wednesday, every third, it's called Fridays of 30 with Curtis, and it's our CEO where he's talking about the updates that happens on a regular basis in the business, and also we also leverage our intranet to deliver news as well. So it's this constant communication and making sure that people don't feel that they're out of place. But this is not a COVID thing. This to me is how you operate when you're working remotely.
Sharon, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I think for my frontline folks, the good side of the pandemic has been that the rest of the organization is now working from home, and because of that, everything is virtual. So what they've really enjoyed is, because they were the only team that was working from home in the past, and so everything was kind of like an in-office event. And sometimes they would miss it, or we'd always think about, well, how do we kind of bring them along? So our CEO as well has weekly video messages that he sends out to the team. Once a month when he does a more comprehensive chat, it's a virtual chat which everyone can engage in. So the work at home folks who've always worked from home have loved this enhanced communication. And so it's definitely something that we are going to continue to dial up, because we have that team here, but it's also this way we can just reach out to everyone consistently and recognize there's some folks working in different parts of the Canada, and some at home, some at not. And this kind of levels the playing field that we can all reach out in one kind of general way and connect with each other.
I think that's amazing. So there's some positives coming out of all this, and you're really hoping fine-tuning the way in which you're communicating, and the way people can.
Hi, Jeff.
Yes, hello.
Jeff, sorry to interrupt. I don't mean to be rude, but we're having a hard time hearing you. Could you
Still,
speak? Can you just speak into your phone? Take it off speaker. Yeah.
Yeah, I need a special pin to get into the phone. So is that any better?
Now it's good.
Okay.
Gotta lean right in.
And I have questions from the audience.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah, so I don't mean to be rude. Sorry.
Jump in anytime.
Just keeping an eye on time too. So I have a question from our very good friend Jane Finn. So she's saying, in regards to work-life balance integration with 100% of your people working from home, how have you modified your scheduling processes to accommodate employees while trying to meet the needs of the business?
Sharon,
That could go to Jane. I mean, that could go to Sharon or David.
Sharon, what do you think?
Okay. So we were always a work from home. The frontline was always work from home. But what this enabled us to do was, like I said, we have more split shift options. So we were able to offer our associates a variety of different options, because we took out the need to ever come into the office and the travel time into the office for any activity. And so we were able to look at our call patterns and to offer some unique options in terms of how folks are scheduled. And also when the volume dropped, we were very busy. Our volume has dropped a little bit now. We were able to offer those options, the schedule leave without pay options, to have shorter work weeks, or to work half days. So I've never had, my workforce planning team is very unique. We have a lot of variable shift options for our frontline folks. So we have the options built in that they could, you're starting out your day, you have an incident in the morning and you go, oh, you know what, I'm going to need to start an hour later. they would just be able to trigger a variable to say, I'm going to start an hour later today without it being a big deal, because they had the option of a certain amount of variables per month and per quarter that they could use into their shifts. So they have that functionality always, but we just opened up the type of split shift, and we asked them to kind of put their hand up if dealing with childcare issues, they had unique situations, to come forth to their leaders, who would then approach workforce to say, she wants to work like 2 hours here and have a couple hours off. She helps her kids with the homework, and then she can sign back in later. Does that work? And we were able to make those in the moment kind of changes, because we already had a framework of flexibility built into our shifts and how they build a shift to begin with.
Thank you, Sharon. David, any thoughts on that one?
No, very similar to Sharon. I would be repeating what she said to Wayne, but just we already had flexibility built into the schedule. Like work-life balance was important. I think the differences with COVID is that now, to Sharon's point, you have your kids or there's people at home that are actually interrupting your day. So how do you adjust with that? And that's where with some of the shifts, like some of the shift changes and accommodations that we've done that to try and adjust. The other thing that we've also done, which we're able to do, is because we're on Genesis in the cloud, because we have a cloud solution, we're able to leverage team members in the branch network, so in the face-to-face network, to also help out on the phones with some of the volume, which allows us to create some of the flexibility in our schedule, because we have close to, I think it's about 30 to 40 branch team members that are actually on the phone right now that have gone through the technical kind of contact center training. They already had the skills to speak to customers, and they use the phone a fair bit. It was just a matter of teaching them the technology and what it's like to work in a contact center. And we actually assigned a leader, a group of leaders to these that work in a contact center, to these group of branch team members, so that they can help us out. So having that cloud solution has also allowed us to have some flexibility in terms of the way how we spread out the workload.
That's awesome.
And the one comment I have, though, is, the people that struggled most with the work-life balance in going home was the corporate team. It just seemed that people got up and they, get up, and normally you get ready and drive to work. They get up and they just sat down and started working. And so what we got for a lot of us was just kind of this, we're constantly working. And like you said, the times where you'd have maybe walk by someone's desk to have a conversation, you had to make time. Everything was a schedule and a meeting. So your day was just blocked. And so people were burning out from that. So what we've done is we've asked them to make their lunchtime sacred. So from 12 to 1, across the organization, we said that no one works then. Everyone needs to take time. And we've asked people to build in that time. And there are times that I reach out to some of my managers or so, and I will just say, okay, because they'll tell me something like, oh, I need to run to the store now. But then when I'll come back, I'll sign in, and I said, no, you won't. You've already been here all day. I go, you're done for the day, and whatever it is can wait till tomorrow. And so reminding of them that. So it's the corporate folks, the non-frontline folks who really struggled, because it just felt like they were always on. And so we just had to put in points where we made them shut down for a bit. And I go outside, go for a walk, but you need to take a break.
And that's really, really important to make sure everybody gets that message. And I think that would be something that would be important moving forward as well. Okay, let's, do we have any more questions right now, Sangeeta?
Jeff, I have quite a few, but what I'd like to do is, if we can get through the next couple questions that we had from before, and then I have questions.
Okay. All right. So I guess, we talked about some of the challenges already. If you could kind of crystallize what one of your, I guess, key or most important challenges has been through this whole process, what would you say that is? And what have you done to address that issue? And you may have already touched on it, but I'd like to kind of crystallize it for everyone on the call today. So David, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so the main challenges is really, and we actually saw it through a pulse survey that we did, is that the main challenges is that A, people miss their friends, and B, the ability to collaborate and connect with people. So you just can't turn around and just ask your partner a question. So that was one piece of it. And we also, you have to be super, super thoughtful on how you communicate. So what I mean, you could get into what I call chat hell, where you're just chatting back and forth, and so the amount of time that you spend chatting, if you aggregate the time that you spend chatting, it could sometimes add up to like an hour. And my rule of thumb with people is that, I use chat, and the way how we use chat is for quick answers. So if you're gonna be having a discussion and you're gonna be going back and forth, put down the chat and pick up the phone and talk to somebody. Because what I find happening is that a chat conversation with an individual could have taken about 45 minutes, and if you just picked up the phone and spoke to them, you could have had that conversation in 10 minutes. So there has to be what I call these guiding principles. If it takes more than 2 chats to get your answer or to get a response or to get the information that you pick up the phone and call someone. So and that can act as in place for in person. And what happens is that people write differently. People may not communicate the same way verbally as they do in the written word, and things get lost in translation. And sometimes you just need, sometimes I just say to people, pick up the bloody phone and just call me, right? Because I don't want to go back and forth anymore. And to me, it takes too much effort. So that's the piece around being very, very thoughtful. And it can also reinforce that whole notion of, I can just turn around and just ask my person a question. You do a chat. Hey, you free now? Can we talk for 5 minutes? I need something to talk to you about. No, I'm not free now, but I'm free. And then those are the types of things that you need to do when you're communicating, because sometimes people just get lost in chat, and I've seen it. You go back and forth and go, the hell are you doing? I can't even keep track of the stream of notes that are going back and forth. Pick up the phone and go and call somebody.
It's really interesting. It could be cultural to some degree too. I think the younger generation are much more averse to, or much more fluent with chat and texting and that kind of thing. But it's also a level of trust too. People can just talk verbally to one another, get an answer, get on with things. You don't have to have a paper trail. You get the job done and go on to the next. So that's really interesting. Thank you for those points. Sharon, what would you say?
So, Jeff, can I jump in? It's really muffled. So if I can ask the questions from our audience, because big growing list for David and Sharon.
Okay, well, let's move on.
Yeah, and when you're that close, then we can hear you. Otherwise, I'm getting a lot of notes that audience cannot hear.
Okay.
Sorry. I know I sound really rude. I apologize. Okay, so the list is just growing. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions. So here's one. How are the team managers, supervisors, coaches finding their coaching sessions with their agents in this new virtual world? And this for either one.
Yeah, so I'll hop in because we have a bunch of leaders that didn't lead remotely, and this is their first time actually doing it. What we've learned though is that we used to run meetings where you would have a combination of in-person and remote, and the people that were working remote felt completely disengaged. So when we had a town hall and we did it all remote, we had team members say, man, that was the best meeting I've ever had. This is coming from a remote person that worked primarily remote. So what we're doing, what we've learned is that leaders need to just, if you're managing a remote team, that's the remote team that you do, and you don't try and mix up face-to-face with remote, especially when you're dealing with large groups of people. So what our leaders are doing in terms of communicating with people are exactly the things that I talk about. They make sure that they check in with their team members. They make sure that things aren't done 100% over chat, that there's conversations being happened, that you use video as much as you possibly can to make sure that you're present with your team members. And we're able to leverage technology within Google to do things like hijacking and listening to calls and playing back. Use our Genesis technology to play back calls for team members. So a lot of things that we were able to do in person, we can still do today. And what we've actually done, because we had a small remote team, all we've done is just scaled up what we were doing remotely with greater focus on it. So what we're finding with our leaders is that I think the exhaustion part from the part that's making them is tired is that you really have to be engaged with your leaders, and you have to really manage your time tightly. So having those tightly managed organizational skills and making sure that you stay engaged with your team members, those are the things that they had to put on steroids in order to make sure that they're keeping our team members engaged, including myself.
That's great. And I have another question here. Thank you. From Zane. So I think the first part was already answered, how you keep teams connected on a daily basis. The second part is, how do you boost up morale? So either David or Sharon.
So I'll take that one. I'm sure David can jump in as well. As I said in the beginning, I think how you do it is the same way that you do it when someone is face to face with you. You need to have time to have those conversations. So the web cameras are really important, and the daily check-ins with folks. So that's where it takes the time. So, we do have the Slack channels or the Jabber channels where the team leaders will check in to say, good morning, team. How's everyone today? And connect that way. I schedule a daily chat with all of my managers. We come together every morning at 10 o'clock and we have a chat. Sometimes it's more formal topics. Sometimes it's just checking in to see how everyone is doing. I have weekly check-ins with folks as well. So for the morale piece, it's dialing up the points of connection you have and leveraging the technology so that you can see folks and really see how they are doing. We made sure to really amplify the recognition across the organization, especially for our frontline teams, because of all of the additional hours they were working in the beginning. There was a lot of overtime. Our call volume was over 300% above what it normally was. They were working overtime. And so like I said, we created this virtual thank you card signed by people across the organization we shared customer feedback, and we put it in a card and we shared it. We sent out e-vouchers to the team to say thank you for the efforts. Yes, they were paid the overtime, but this was just to say thank you, and there's something for you to do with your families. And so we make sure that we have a tool, a pass it on tool that we use that we can give miles. And so when people have things that we want to recognize, we pass it on, and the whole organization can see what we're recognizing the associate for, and they get miles for that. We will be introducing a virtual gratitude wall. So we're going to, it hasn't been launched yet, so I'm kind of letting it out of the bag now, but we're going to be launching that, and it's a way for us to go in on a daily basis and talk about what we're grateful for and just share across the organization, and that should be up and running in a couple of weeks across for the entire Air Miles team. But it's just a way to amplify all the good things that are happening across the organization and to say thank you on a daily basis. I always make an opportunity to say thank you to my team. Thank you for individuals for the small things that they do every day, and just to recognize that people notice the work they are doing and the impact it has. The infographic that we have introduced, that we will be introducing, next, will also show the frontline team the direct metrics that they have influence on, but the indirect metrics across the organization in terms of number of collectors who are redeeming that is a result of the face of the brand that they represent and the questions that they help to answer and all of that great work. So I think it's just every moment that you have, taking time to recognize and say thank you and amplifying that and giving people opportunities and ways to do that.
Yeah, I love the gratitude wall idea. I actually took a note, Sharon, and between you and the rest of the panelists, I'm stealing it. So
it's a great one. Yes, go ahead.
I'm going to steal it like a thief in the night. So that is a really, really good idea. The things that I'll add to what Sharon does is that it is about that, but the one thing that we still do is that we still make sure that we are big on people delivering excellent service, and that although we're working remote and although we're going through COVID, like the expectations in terms of what you're delivering to customers does not go away. So one of the things that we've been really harping on with our team members is to make sure that our customers or people, when they contact you, they're in a bit of stress, and everyone's feeling some stress nowadays, and that you have to be cognizant of that and realize that you have a moment, that you have an opportunity to make a difference with that one customer. You can actually, so our tagline is that when customers interact with us, we want them feeling better than when they first contacted us. So you leave that customer feeling a little bit better than when they initially picked up the phone to call us. If you can do that and make sure that you're delivering value to our customers, then you're doing excellent work. So we've been really, really harping in on that and making sure that people realize that, people's moods and their people are going to have certain anxieties. You just need to be cognizant of that when you're talking with people, and that it's not about you. You're dealing with a life at the end of the interaction, and that person speaking to has different stresses like you do, and just to be cognizant about those stresses, and make sure that we're still accountable to delivering like outstanding service to our customers.
Okay, great. So there's quite a few additional questions. I have another one here. She's saying it's a little bit unrelated, but how can you show that you're respecting the fact that your clients are also working from home now as well when you're on a call with them? And do you suggest a certain strategy on scheduling calls with customers under the new normal? It's a good question.
Yeah, we're primarily an inbound center, so customers call us when they call us, and then we obviously have callback where customers can decide when to schedule a callback with us. So that hasn't come up as an issue. What we do recognize, and what we do, because we have this thing what we call our customer interaction flow, which is the way how we have conversations with customers. And part of that is showing empathy and understanding the customer situation. So just as you would in normal times, if you hear a dog barking in the background or you hear a baby crying, you acknowledge that and you make sure that the conversation that you're having with the customer, you're being respectful of their time, and you're also being understanding of the situation that they're in. So a lot of those things haven't changed. Because we do that anyway on a regular basis. You have to do that in terms of when you're interacting with customers. You need to understand their circumstance and the situation that they're in. You just have to pay a little bit more attention to it nowadays because it's happening obviously more frequently.
Same for us as well. We're an inbound, so the collectors, we call our customers collectors. Call us, so we don't really have that, but it's the same thing as we've done in the past. Probably more opportunities where you'll hear the child in the background, or and the collectors will hear it on the agent side, and so they've had really nice conversations, and acknowledging that they understand that their kids are home and my kids are home, and so that's kind of a bridge to building a nice relationship as they work to help the customer out with whatever they're calling about. But it's usually they laugh a little bit and share a story while they're helping to connect. So I think it's a point of connection that we're all kind of in the same boat right now.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so should we go to the previous slide? We have 5 minutes before we wrap up. And then at 3 o'clock, we're going to stay on. Our speakers have been gracious enough to give extra time because there are a lot of questions. So Jeff, do you want me to turn it back to you? Oh, okay.
Hi, Sangeeta, can you hear me?
Yeah.
You can hear me okay?
Oh, okay, it's a bit echoey. I'll just take it here. So David, Sharon, what are your leaders, how are they coping and managing the remote workforce? Because so many more things have come onto them. So how are they coping?
Yeah. So I think that there's a couple things here. As I mentioned before, the technology is important. So one of the things that we're doing with the leaders is that we're recognizing that we need to give them better tools and training how to use the tools. Because as I said before, they used to come in office for bigger meetings. And so now what we're doing is we're training them on how to use a whiteboard virtually, how to create breakout teams virtually. And so we're having a training coming up in a couple of weeks to introduce them to some new tools, have them get some practice. We'll come back in a couple of weeks and make sure that, and give them opportunities to use that. So making sure that they have the training like on the WebEx training center to help them facilitate better meetings. That's coming up. So we want to make sure they have the right technology. We're surveying our folks about what they need and what their comfort level is about working from home and how we can help so we can get that feedback. And the mental health training. So all of the leaders got mental health training that was about recognizing if someone may be having an issue in the team. But the most important piece that I think that leaders do really, really well, we take care of our teams. We're always focused on looking out for the health and welfare of those who work for us. But sometimes what we miss on is our own health and welfare. So the big ask and the thing that we want the teams to focus on, the team leaders, is to make sure that they're taking the time to take care of themselves and to make sure that they are in a good spot. So making sure that they have some work-life balance, that they're listening, that they're getting enough rest, that they're exercising, that, if they're not sleeping, we've offered out additional, in addition to our standard EAP services, we have some additional counseling services that we made open to all associates. But while our leaders are really good at sharing that information, we want to make sure that they're taking time. Because think about it when you're on I'm using the airplane and no one's flying anymore, but when you're on a plane and they talk about the oxygen, they always say you need to put the mask on yourself before you can help someone else. And so that's the same analogy here. Before you can help your team through a really difficult time, you need to make sure that you're taking care of yourselves. The world, if any of us think about where we are today, I don't think we would have imagined a world that had the pandemic going on and that we'd all have to be at home and we're isolated from friends and family. And while that's going on, we also have this social and civil unrest that's going on and this change. And while I believe with all my heart we're changing and evolving to be better, it's painful and it's scary and it's isolating and all of that is going on. And so as leaders, we need to demonstrate and lead by example that we are going to take care of ourselves. And I think it's important to share your stories about, what I really struggled too. I had a hard time yesterday when I saw that or heard that. Conversations that used to be taboo are now conversations that must be had. So I think all of us grew up in the industry, working in call centers, working with teams, and there were certain things, you don't talk about those things in the office. Now you have to talk about those things. Everyone's life the world is impinging on who we are and how we show up at work. And so we need to give permission to have difficult conversations. We need to give permission to say that we are struggling. We need to give permission to say, I need help. And to do that, we need to be really vulnerable ourselves.
That's so true.
Yeah, well said, Sharon. Yeah, very much of the same thing. So what I'm doing, because I have one-on-ones with all of my leaders, all the frontline leaders, I have regular one-on-ones with them, and what I've been doing is creating space to actually talk to them about how they're doing. And it's not around business. It's because the thing around working remote, even with COVID, is there's a big aspect around people's mental health, because if people don't feel that their heads are screwed on properly, like, they're not going to be able to perform, period. So a big piece of it is really checking in with the leaders and creating space to have those conversations, especially about the issues around Black Lives Matter and all the unrest that's going on in the world. And I've been very, very open with people in terms of my vulnerabilities. I've been very, very open in terms of about me, because I'm the only Black executive at ATB Financial, so I've been talking to people about that and allowing them to ask me questions, and also creating space for them to have discussions and share their feelings, because I think that's going to be so important, making sure that you're able to create that space where people feel psychologically safe to have those types of conversations and to feel vulnerable. And to Sharon's point, it starts with me. It starts with my CEO. It starts at that, for lack of a better word, I hate using this term, but it starts at the top, and the top needs to demonstrate that, and you demonstrate that through your action. So that's what we've been doing with the leaders. It's really opening up the conversation, because once you start to open up conversations, not just around the racial unrest that's happening right now, but just around how people are feeling, then you can start to understand people better, and then you can start working towards solutions that actually mean something.
Awesome. Thank you. So I'm going to wrap up this session for 3 o'clock, but our speakers are staying on to answer all the additional questions. And thank you so much. So on June 17th, we have a webinar that's joint with many associations in the US. Speaker is Tim Montgomery, and he wrote a fantastic article that's being very well received. It's called "Where Do Contact Centers Go From Here?" And you can register on the GTAC site. And I know the webinar space, they have a big platform. So you're more than welcome to join. It's North American wide, and it's this Wednesday on June 17th. And then looking ahead, so we had an awards show planned for June 4th. So obviously we had to cancel that, but we still want to recognize all those amazing people that keep things moving and tirelessly serve our customers, and recognize all of you leaders that we've been hearing from serving and serving. So we will have a virtual event, and it's open for all, coast to coast. And you'll hear details about it. There's not going to be any cost. There is no gala. We're going to do it all virtually. But guess what? Recognition is fun, and all of you heroes out there deserve it. So stay tuned for details. And I'm just thrilled that we're going to be able to do this for everyone. And then, oh, that's just a team from last year. So you can virtually do this for this year. That's friends from MCAP. Yeah. And then just save the date for November 5th. So we always have our big conference the first Thursday of November. And we, just to be cautious and protect everyone, and just with the lens of safety, it will be all virtual, but we are going all out to make sure you have a conference experience with breakouts and exhibitor rooms. meeting sponsors, networking. We are going to do this. And because charities have been really hit hard through COVID, food banks are in dire need, and a charity that we really support to help children with rare diseases find a cure. We're going to be having a ticketing station site set up for either Cure SPG 50 or Daily Bread Food Bank, and you can make a $50 and above donation, and that will be access to this big event for 100% give back. And that's, you know, somebody's phone is echoing back on me. And then just stay tuned for details. And I always like to promote this show. Neil DeLinde, who's one of our GTech influencers and a huge influence in our community. He puts on musicals every year to support various charities. Check out Unsung Heroes, a website. There's many ways you could support the musicals. And this year, the funds are all going to Camp Ooch. That's for children suffering with cancer. And all these kids need to have a time to have fun. So I just really like to use this platform to also promote his musicals. So we made it in time, 3 o'clock. I like to be mindful of everybody's schedules. So if you need to go, you can go. And if you want to stay on to continue the discussion, we are all on because of our wonderful speaker. So thank you, David and Sharon and Jeff. The interview was tremendous. I really appreciate it. So the webinar is over. Safe. I want everyone to be safe and sound. And stay tuned for upcoming sessions, and you'll get the recording. And these questions and answers will also be on the recording. So let's continue. I have some more questions here. So this is from Sebastian. What experiences can you share regarding employees that have small children that require constant attention? Okay, Jeff, can you turn your phone off? Jeff, your phone is echoing back. Can you shut it off? Yeah. So did you guys hear that question?
Yeah, I think the question was about employees who have kids who need constant attention.
Exactly.
Okay, so I can jump in. We've had a few associates who've come forward to share that they have kids, they may have kids with special needs or kids that require additional support, or they're just struggling. Like, I have 4 kids. My husband is out of the office. I'm trying to juggle this, and I'm trying to juggle the schoolwork, and so I'm really having a hard time. What we look for first, is there any schedule options that we can do to adjust? We have done some leave options for those folks. We've done a compassionate leave option where they've taken some time so they can focus and do what they need to do to help their kids and return to work on a full schedule later. So really, it's the conversations that we have with ourselves, the associate, trying the options and the variable shift options that we have to give them time to focus with their children. And if that doesn't work, we do have compassionate leave or leave options that we can look at that will help them as well. So we have a couple of folks who've chosen that option.
Okay, thank you. And what about this? How is coaching done virtually? What are some tools used? That's the first question. And part 2 from Dinogen is, what are you doing to be compliance ready for your agents working from home?
What do you mean by compliance ready? Because compliance ready means different things for different industries, depending on how ready.
Yeah, I'm imagining, and I know, let's say if you're in FI or insurance, how are you ensuring they're being compliant? Maybe PCI compliance, or like, how are you ensuring?
Yeah, we have a security team at Airmal. So anytime that we have process or policy, because we do get credit card information. This was not new for COVID. This was before we went home. We have certain requirements and standards in terms of not writing down the credit card information, for blocking it out of the recordings on calls, Those standards haven't changed because of this. Those are the same standards, but anytime we have a process or a policy going out to frontline that has to do with any personal information, that team kind of, with the legal team, reviews and audits and makes sure that we are compliant. In terms of the technology, I'm not the best person to answer that. The IT team makes sure that we have the right technology to be compliant. In terms of the coaching conversations that we have, the leaders do those conversations virtually. They will share the call to be reviewed with the agents, give an opportunity so they can listen to the call together, and then have the coaching conversations. What was different for us as a result of the pandemic was we might have chosen to have more serious performance type conversations, where like job impacting conversations, or if we had to do an exit or a termination, we'd always bring people in office to have those kinds of conversations. We can't do that now. Our HR team is awesome. We plan with them how to have the right conversations. We just do those conversations virtually. And set up the same types of plans. The coaching is just done virtually over the phone. And now with the web cameras, we engage that way. So.
Okay, and are there any other tools that you use?
Yeah, so we use the phone, but we one of the things that we definitely leverage is video chat. So because we're on Google, we can go through Google Chat. You can actually schedule meetings through Google Chat, and you can have like a face-to-face meeting.
Yeah.
So we tend to use the technology, the tools that are in front of us, like Google Chat, Google Hangouts. You can play the phone calls back to people. So wherever we can use video to show that we're being present with folks, that's what we do. We tend to leverage a lot of the video and leverage in chat to communicate with our people, as well as the telephone.
Yeah, we do the same. So all of our agents have webcams, so their webcams are enabled when they're having their coaching discussions. Yeah.
Okay, great. So another question here is, curious to know how reps are practicing or doing scenario-based training with the virtual shift, with everyone going virtual.
Yes. That's challenging. Yeah. Okay, so so a couple things. We have our coaches in a virtual kind of chat room available, so people can, if they have questions, the coaches are sitting waiting in the chat room so they can jump in and help. And that's a way of doing a virtual kind of side-by-side conversation. So we're templating how we can do that. We built into all of our training now, we've asked for a lot more scenarios. So outside of when they go live, when we train, we always do a process afterwards that we call Academy Bay, which is you've completed the training for new hires, and then they go in, they're fully trained, they start taking calls, and they have coaches. They usually used to do that in office, and the coaches would be walking around. They're able to put your hand up if you need help. The hand up now is just done in the virtual chat rooms. The coaches are in the chat rooms waiting. They can see somebody has an indicator, I need help on this call, and they will go in to help the person on that call. It's just a virtual chat room that they have to set up. But we've also built in a lot more scenarios into the training to say scenario A, so a practice session. And so act like this is a call, this is a scenario, go find your resources, show us how you would answer it, where you would go, and they're provided with feedback on that from their trainers and their coaches.
Okay,
yeah,
great.
we do very similar things. The only add that I would add to what Sharon does is that we do what we call calibration sessions. So what we do is we have the senior leadership listen to calls, because we have this interaction flow that we use. And it's just the way how we interact and have conversations with our customers. So we have the senior leaders have a calibration session. So we'll every week we'll set aside 2 hours to listen to 3 or 4 phone calls, and we'll listen to them from various different groups, and we'll calibrate on those calls. We also have calibration sessions with the leaders. The leaders then have calibration sessions with their teams, and the team members have calibration sessions with themselves. So because you're able to listen to the calls, you're able to take random calls and listen to those and listen to those phone calls and make sure that they're in line with the way how we want to have the conversations with our customers, and then B, that obviously that we're giving the correct information to customers, and then C, to make sure that all the leaders, that we're all aligned on what a great experience we want to deliver to with a customer. And then on top of that, because we have voice of customer surveys that come up from immediate after call surveys that come up from customers, we can actually say what we think and what the customer thinks, right? So you can actually
like a 360.
But we're able to say, you know, I know the customer's going to score us a 5 on this one, but we actually the team members sounded outstanding. They did everything that the customer said that they wanted to, but we actually gave some wrong information, and they're going to have to end up calling back. So those are things that we do. The calibration sessions really work well, and it helps us for scenario-based training, but it also allows team members to listen to their own calls and understand where things went well and where things could improve.
Okay.
Yeah. We do the calibration sessions as well as the senior leaders calibrate and the leaders calibrate. We don't do calibration sessions, so this is interesting, with the frontline teams per se. We may choose sometimes like a call in our call. We might have a call library where we put an outstanding call and allow people to listen to that, but we don't calibrate on a group level with the frontline teams. The individuals get to listen to their calls, but that's a great opportunity as well.
Okay, great. And we have one final question here, is what technology is being used for the virtual cards? So I guess this is for you, Sharon.
For the virtual, sorry?
For the virtual.
Oh, for the virtual card. Oh, you know what? I have no idea. That's my communication team. I said to them, hey, I wanted to create a virtual thank you card for the front line, especially because I told you our call volume was excessive. They were working really long hours. We wanted to say thank you. And so I will get that information though and pass it on to Sangeeta. I'll have to ask the communications team. They created it for us, and they included feedback from customers and comments from senior leaders and leaders, us all saying thank you, and we shared that with the team. So I will ask what technology they use to do that.
And I'm happy to share what we use as well, because we have the virtual thank you cards. We also have virtual awards where you can award someone something based, and what it is tied back into the values of ATB. So for example, you can award someone that had a great call with a customer. You can actually recognize them. You can get their manager to recognize them. You can get their managers to recognize them. You can actually attach a financial result to it, which are points which they can use to go on and buy catalog things. So what happens, the more people you put on the recognition, those people can actually boost that recognition for the person, so they can turn 250 points into 2,500 points, because you've actually shown that they can.
I wonder if that's the same platform. Is it like an Achievers platform? Because that's what we have.
That's it.
Yeah, we have the Achievers platform, the same platform. Yeah.
Yeah. Same
Okay,
thing.
great. And I saw one more question here. As challenges arise, are you updating your policies and procedures? And how are you communicating those updates?
Definitely, yes. We are, especially for us, because of the travel side of the business and the ongoing policy changes as airlines, make changes to the cancellation policy and refund policies. There's constant changes happening. So we put together a cross-functional team of experts in the call center, from marketing, from finance, from our rewards team regarding travel. So when the updates come through, we look at it from a customer-facing perspective. What do we need to tell our customers, and what channel will we use to communicate to them? What process or policy is impacted for our frontline associates, and we make sure to revise that, and how do we update them with that? And making sure that the knowledge-based tool that we have is updated. So we use a variety of channels. We have a daily news kind of email that goes out to say that there's an update, and we click that goes through to their knowledge tool, and they'll see the latest updates and the FAQs that are aligned to that. For collectors, it will be on .ca or on our IVR. We may provide an update, or we may, in some cases, send out an email communication to say this impacts you and this is how you can reach out to us, especially when we're trying to control our call volume. So we may say to collectors, it impacts you, and this is when you should call us, or this is the tool that you need to fill out your request, and we will get back to you, because we're trying to manage the volume to get back to you in a timely, because we don't want you waiting very long. But we realized there was so much information coming that we needed to make sure we had all the subject matter experts pulled together. So we meet weekly, daily if we need to, depending on how much communication is coming. We look at it and we determine everyone kind of has a role. We have people who make the recordings, update the IVR. The brand team works on the customer-facing messaging. The care team works on the internal messaging and process and procedures. So that's how we kind of have a well-oiled machine in terms of taking the information in and breaking it out into bite-sized pieces, so that everyone knows what they need to do and how they're impacted.
Yeah, we do exactly the same thing. What we have done is we've the contact center, the client care, has much more of a say in how the communications are being written now. So before they actually even get written, we will go in and we will give our input in terms of the language being used, so that to make sure that A, the language is it's simple and easy for customers to understand, and B, that the information that we're given to our team members is easily digestible, that they can digest the information and properly communicate it to customers. So what we've seen happen is that client care has a bigger role or bigger say in terms of how these things are written, so that we don't drive unnecessary call volume because the information is confusing or the team member can't digest all the information. So we're actually at the table when people are thinking about this and planning it, and we make sure that we review anything that goes out to customers by our team members.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing from the pandemic that that was a really good thing. Much more cross-functional teams. So marketing works very, very closely with the call center folks in terms of the communications and the messaging, and we're all lined up to make sure that it's easily understood and the pieces are all there. Those relationships are going to be long-term relationships. We've learned how to work differently with each other to the benefit of our customers and to our frontline teams.
Okay, great. And so this is not a question that was asked, but I thought we should address it. It is top of mind. How do leaders, given everything with George Floyd that happened and the conversations that need to happen, how do leaders start the conversation? How do we go about addressing this and supporting each other?
Yeah, and that's what we're doing today. So the philosophy or so first of all, I had an open conversation with my leaders about it, and all of the leaders actually having very, very open conversations about it and allowing them to ask me whatever questions they want to ask of me. And what I've been encouraging people to do is that the contact center, when you look at contact centers, and I don't think it matters any part of the world or any part of this country, that typically your frontline team members, whether they're in contact centers or whether it's face-to-face, they're usually your most diverse workforce,
right?
Diverse group of individuals. And the message that I've been saying to people is that, especially to leaders, even the ones that are white, is that you have to open the door to have the conversation. And part of it is just asking people how they feel, like creating that space and just saying, and being, look, with all the stuff that's going on with George Floyd, like, how are you feeling? How are your team members feeling? And once you open up those gateways, people start to talk about things. And, some people are very uncomfortable having the conversation because they don't know what to say. And some of the things I've been saying to people is that, we as, me as a Black person, I have to be willing to use my voice, but I also have to be willing to listen and make sure that I'm not judging people when they're trying to have these conversations, because some people may not use the right words, and what you don't want to do is just jump all over them and call them a racist, because that sometimes happens in social media. So the thing that I've been saying to my leaders is just ask people how they're feeling and ask them the pointed question. Like, be direct around what you want to have the conversation around, and you'll be surprised how people open up, because if you don't have the conversation, you're going to have people there that think that you're tone deaf, and you're actually going to create some unintended consequences of it. So I've been encouraging people to just start by listening first. That's the first thing we need to do. Just ask how people are doing and listen and get people's points of view. That's the steps that we've been taking.
Awesome. That's wonderful. And I love that you said listen. It's across the board, right? We all need to just listen.
Exactly.
Sharon, I know you had tremendous insights the other day. If you want to share anything, and then
I think just jumping off what David said as well is really asking and listening. So I'm doing the same thing, and our in the organization, the broader organization, they're doing the same thing as well. They've come out with messages from the CEO talking about, as an organization, what we're doing and donations we have made. They also sent out to us kind of a leader, how to start to have these conversations with your team, resources that you can look to. But I think the main thing is just putting the elephant on the table and having the conversation to say, this is going on. How are you feeling and how are you doing? And then being really transparent about how I'm feeling and how I'm doing, and that helps people to open up. If they see that you're willing to open up and have that conversation and share about how it is for you, they feel like it's safe that they can do that as well. So it's really important to ask, and it's really important to listen. And I love what David said, that, you know what, they may not have the right words, they may not know how to say it. Listen to what's behind the word, the intent to really understand, because I feel like majority of people really want to understand and be helpful and come from a good place and help them find the right way to get there. I think we can do that together. We're in this together. This took a long, the situation we're in now did not happen overnight. We're not going to resolve it overnight, but we can't resolve it without coming together across all races. It needs all of us at the table. It needs all of us willing to listen. It needs all of us willing to give each other a break. We don't need to be perfect. We just need to be honest. We need to genuinely show that we care for each other, and it will all be okay if we come at it from that perspective. And so those are the conversations. I mean, I've had chat sessions with my frontline team, and my admin was there. She was taking some notes for me, and she said, the beginning of one of them, she goes, I thought that we were just going to cry the whole time, because people started to open up and share things that were painful, and we had a bit of emotion, but we got through that and got to the other side of it. But I think just letting people know sometimes it's okay to cry, it's okay to feel sad. We all feel it, and now let's talk about how we can come together and how we can help each other.
That's amazing. I'm really grateful we had this conversation, but thank you both so much for sharing in such a genuine, authentic manner. And, that's why I love this forum, because you're really just sharing your stories. And I really hope the listeners of this can take this away and feel empowered. But I'm really grateful. Thank you so much, Sharon. Thank you, David, for taking time. I know you did a lot of prep, booked your schedules up. Thank you, Jeff. I know there's
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me? I was so quiet.
Thank you, Jeff. I know we had a little
I'm back.
But that's okay.
You're very welcome, and I'm sorry for the technical glitches, but you guys are all professionals, and you pulled it off. Wonderful job. Thank you, Sharon, for all your amazing insights. Oh my gosh.
Oh, okay. How about, yeah.
Thank you, David, for your amazing insights. And I will dial off now because my technology is about ready to blow up.
Yeah. So, thank you. And
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Sangeeta. This is awesome. Thank you.
And,
thanks,
and
thanks for the opportunity to share. And again, you know, you go on things like this and you get an idea. And Sharon, that gratitude wall, I am stealing it, and it will get implemented.
And we use the Achievers. That's how they're using it. They're going to use the Achievers platform to do it. So you should be able to do it.
Thank you.
this is
Awesome.
great. So thank you,
And what
everyone.
you should do, you should find your fountain of youth and start to sell it.
Exactly.
I don't know if I want to sell that.
Thanks, Mike, for keeping this going behind the scenes. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. And the recording will be up soon. Take care. Have a great week.
Thanks. Bye. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.